Welcome to my garden studio, and today I want to address the question. Here we have a blank canvas, canvas board in fact, and I want to answer the question about many of my students say, hey man, where do we start? Where do I start? I want to do a water body, a landscape with trees. I want to do a landscape that has a little bit of like a dam or a horizon, and I want to have a sky, a real dominant sky. So we're going to answer two questions. One, where do we start? Number two, how do I mix a yellow orange going into a blue cloudy sky? How do I mix that? When it crosses from the yellow orange to the blue, you're going to find that it will go brown or it'll go neutral. So let's just discuss the first one. The first question is, where do we start? Now, what I do all the time, almost every time, I will divide my page up into thirds. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my thumb on the side and my finger along the third line, and I'm going to move my body along the painting just like that. Okay, and what I've got is a third line, not quite straight. I'm using charcoal so it can go away if you paint it over, it doesn't matter. And then what I'm going to do is use my finger again, use my other finger, and you don't need a ruler for this. It's just an idea of how to get a third line in a rough position, something like that. And as you see, they slightly skew, doesn't matter. And then I'll use my finger on the side of the board and my charcoal, and I'll find my third line along there and along there, and I'll do it again on this side using my hand and using the edge of the board over here. I'm going to find my third line. So that's it. So these are the areas that are important. That there, and that there, and that there. So what I'm thinking of doing is having a darker patch at the bottom, which will be my foreground, and then I'm going to have a foresty kind of tree section over here on this side, and where I'm coming to my third line point, I'm going to try to create interesting points over there and there. This one probably won't count, except for the possibility of having the clouds going into a perspective line here. So this is my water body, this is my horizon line. Just going to correct it because it's not quite straight. It's got to, if it's going to the edge of a sea or a dam or the edge where there's no object in it, you must try and get that as straight as you can. So I'm going to get it to a point where I've got a piece of land mass over here, and that means that I'm meeting the third line, and it's going to come down here, and it's going to exit the painting on the third line, so it's roughly there. And then I'm going to have my trees starting around about here. Remember, it's the weight of the object, it's not so much the focal point only. So I'm going to have my trees doing that. I'm going to have my trees going at an angle like that, and then because I've got this gap in here, I'm going to make a tree round about here, and what that'll do, it'll bring, as I was talking about the weight of it, it's going to bring the weight of it over to this third line. So it's about there. Okay, and then my sky is going to run across. Okay, I'm using charcoal. I'm using charcoal so that you can see it on the video, but I'm also using charcoal. I like charcoal because you can blot it out. You can paint right through it, doesn't matter. So here's what I want to be orange, here's what I want to be blue, here's where I'm trying to get a shadowed tree area, almost like a silhouette. Okay, then my landmass is going to run almost down into the water, and then this is going to be water till the horizon, which may be a strong line of land that runs across the top here for distance. I always like to just rub my charcoal in, and the other thing that you could do if you're using charcoal, because it breaks off, you want to get those little pieces that are breaking off away off your canvas. Okay, so there's my structure, and that's how easy it is actually to start a painting. Divide it up into thirds, 1, 2, 1, 2, so you have panels 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and what that'll do, it'll give you an area to start your painting. So you would think, okay, this is actually very easy. The way to start this is actually very simple. So try it. Number 1, I'm thinking of sky, blue. Number 2, I'm thinking of sky, orange, yellow. Water at the background. Trees sitting on a land body, and trees that are sitting on the land body, this land body is going into the water. But everything relates to these third lines, and that's the key. I do it every time, almost every time, in a painting. The other thing I want to point out is the format that I've chosen. Normally the format is an A4, A3, A2 format. I'm actually accentuating this horizon by having a wider format, narrower this way and wider this way. Your chance to do a painting could be a vertical format where you emphasizing long pieces, maybe a tree or some, yeah, but I'm emphasizing the sky and this massive area of dark paint. So that's how I'm starting this painting. Okay, and then we'll see what happens. I'm actually quite excited about this painting. Stick with me and let's see how it works. So we've discussed something quite important. Often my students would say, man, how do I start? How do I begin this painting? It's a white canvas and it can be very intimidating. You know, I know what I want to paint, but I don't know where to start. So we've discussed this third point. The next thing I want to talk about is the use of tone as opposed to color. This painting, I'm planning it to be very colorful, but I'm not starting with color. I'm starting with tone. So what I want to demonstrate to you first of all is getting this horizon line absolutely straight, because there's water at the back and I want this horizon line to be absolutely straight around about this point here. I want it to be absolutely level and straight with the rest of the canvas. You don't need to use a ruler. So what I'm doing is I'm actually using another board. I'm paralleling it on that side, and I'm going to be drawing an absolutely straight line, which I'll be using all the way through the painting. So where we're at is squaring up the canvas, getting my horizon line straight, and one can see how this is starting to construct. But now I want to point out something, that color is not the most important thing. Tone is important. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing a very watery tonal mixture of paint. Watch that it doesn't run over the top of my painting in an unwanted area, and I'm going to just tone the bottom of my painting. So I'll pick up a little bit of paint and I'll just tone it and I'm using my thumb here as an edge to the canvas, and I've got a feeling that we're going to have a darker bottom of the canvas. The lower part of the canvas is going to be darker, and I'm now starting to construct with just tone, and this is black paint. Not opposed to using black paint, you just have to be careful of it. I'm just giving myself the direction of the landscape and then the water body, picking up a little bit more, and the water body is going to be very much horizontal to the painting, so we've got this horizontal feel happening. Picking up a little bit more water, and I'm getting a little bit of paint, not too dark. You want it to be quite thin, so that when you construct your painting with the tone, you can go over it and it will cover. So I want the trees to go out of the painting here. I want the trees to actually exit out of the painting. A lot of these marks are going to stay. These marks, some of them are going to be covered and some of them are actually going to stay. What I would like to emphasize is the step by step and how easy it is if you follow the steps. Follow the steps of what I'm doing here, and you see actually it's not so difficult. It's not that difficult. But in the beginning, you will be forgiven to say, well, I don't know how to start. I don't know how to start this painting, man. Where do I go? So I'm getting my tree shapes in there. Hear those doves in the background. It's so cute because it is a garden studio, and every now and then we'll have an interruption with the sound, with cars going by and whatever. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's how I've started my painting. I'm going to just edge it here, because that's the far in the distance piece of land, which is at a bit of an angle to the horizon line, which is always pretty straight, pretty flat and straight. I'm just going to edge it here, and what's happening is I can start visualizing my painting. That's really what we want to do, is be able to have something on the canvas. That's the hard part, is to have something to look at instead of the white. So it then gives me some prompt of how to continue with the painting. So we've got a little bit of heavy there, so I'm just going to wipe it away. But when we get in here, we're going to paint past this black mark that I've made here, which is very heavy. At this point, you could actually make more marks than you think you need, because you're going to use those marks later on. What I'm doing is I've got this very nice, I love these brushes. They're called glaze brushes, and it's got a flat end and a very broad. So I'm just creating a foreground object which is a fence of some kind, and as you go along, you're going to see how this is going to work for me. So I've got this, and then just reinforcing the edge of this land mass. So I'll pick up a bit more paint, and I'm going to put a little bit more land, this foreground, which is not now this area here is going to be pretty light, so I'm not going to affect it with my dark marks. At this stage, I'm simply creating the objects which tell me where to go next. What happens is, in the water could actually curve up in that direction. So we're always working towards this third mark here. It's not an absolute rule, obviously, but it's the way to start, the way to begin your painting if you're not sure of how to start. So I'm turning my brush over and I'm making these distant lines at an oblique angle, and then as it comes forward, it goes, the lines will become more horizontal, vertical. There are pieces that I want in there. We're going to be painting around these pieces and having negative space, the negative spaces in these tree areas, and it's really just going by eye. I'm going to soften this charcoal because we're coming back for the light areas of the charcoal, and this line is not necessary. This line here is not necessary. We're not going to go up to that line. There's my horizon. This line we're going to paint out with white. So tone is about light and dark, nothing to do with color at this point in time. It is going to become a very colorful painting, but it's not about color. So the next step we're going to do is lightening the areas up at the top here by painting them white. So we got white and a gray black, and we're starting to see the areas that we're going to put the color in, and that's the most important. So third lines to start the painting. Tone your painting, get a bit of a tone so that you can start seeing, okay, I don't want that, but I do want that. Then that's great, we're on the right track. So we've done the dark area, the darker area. Whoa, this is all wet, it doesn't matter. It's the underneath of my plastic palette that's got water. This is an old palette, it's a laminated piece of paper, so really nice to use. I do have the other palette, but I don't want to use that right now. What we're going to do, we're going to use acrylic white. Okay, I've got the tub open, and with a smaller brush just get a bit of liquid into the acrylic, and I'm going to lighten areas here, take away some of these lines that I don't want, and I'm going to use a palette knife to give a bit of texture to the sky. So I've got a fair amount of paint in there, and I'm going to texture the sky. The way I'm painting it is going to be the same direction that the clouds are going in. So you can see here how easy it is to cover the charcoal, the original drawing. You cover the charcoal and create this texture line going down to this third mark here, right down there, and that's really what I'm aiming at all the time, and giving myself a texture. I don't like hair in the painting, so I'll take the hair out. It's very easy to take the hair out. You would just push against the hair and then the brush itself takes the hair out. So I'm getting rid of this unwanted line that's going across the painting, which was the original structure, yes, but I want to be able to see where I'm going to be going next. And I will show you what I do with the palette knife. So I have to work fairly quickly. Okay, I'm getting my acrylic in here, white acrylic, and I'm going to be working quite quickly. You can see the edge starting to happen here, and I'm constantly working towards this third line, this third point here. Need not worry too much about the edge of the tree line. You can see this is actually not difficult to do. What I find is many of my students, I don't want to start, I'm not sure how to begin the painting. Start with these steps, the third line, and then the next element to remember is tone, and you will see how quickly your painting starts to form its own shape and its own, you can see where the shapes are happening. You want this to be gone. I'm not sure if I need a palette knife actually, because the brush is giving me a fantastic texture. Fantastic texture. I'm going to go right into this tree, covering, getting this dry brush area here. So that's fine. And just getting rid of these lines that are distracting me. I can't see past the light. I'm looking at the lines and I'm thinking, hey man, this is like telling me to do something I don't want to do. And take out the little blobs like that. I'm going to try putting, there's a mark that I wanted out, so I'll just put a second layer. We've got a very cool day today, actually, in the garden studio. Actually looks almost like it's going to rain. So I've got to get going on this. The paint is not drying as it was in the previous videos. I'm not drying that fast. But as we go along, you can see the structure of the painting. Now there's a lovely sky. We're going to have blue across here, and we're going to have an orangey yellow coming in there, and it's working in a kind of perspective that goes to this third line. That's really, really cool. Something else I'd want to do is just put some, what happens is if you paint over the top of canvas board with acrylic paint like I'm doing now, it gives it a different surface. And what that means is when you color in and you get your color coming in, you're going to have a different surface, and the paint is going to react differently to the canvas surface. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of filling in these areas with a little bit of paint, so that there's a consistency throughout the surface of the painting. So I'm going to put in some, constantly drawing. I'm actually sketching at the moment, sketching in, and I'm pretty satisfied with that. There's some lines that are still coming through, but that's not a major problem. Now I did promise you that I was going to use a palette knife, so I'm going to just very gently go over the top of this wet paint and flatten out the mountains, the ridges, with this soft palette knife area like that there, and that becomes a cloud already. I can see that, and there's always going down to this third point here. Gotta watch this little mark. Oh, that's too much. Okay, so we just very gently, and I'm covering up the little mistakes. The edge of the palette knife is making marks that I don't want. So I want the marks to go down towards here, to this third line here. And in the sky, there are no sharp, very few sharp marks in the sky. So I'm just softening it as we go. So that's the area that, there's a nice cloud coming in here. It's very good. Okay. And then I'm putting that in the water, and that will, everything else looks good. So I've got the sky coming up ready. So now we're back with color, and I'm going to color the sky first. So we put some ultramarine into the palette, close up that lid, and bring some white into the palette, which is on another side of the palette, like that. And then what I'm going to do is add water to the white, and then I've got enough. And very, very carefully with a big brush, I'm going to make a watered down blue color. So it's watered down, and I'm going to try and mix it properly, try and mix it thoroughly. And what I'm doing is I'm getting the sky, and I'm going to be doing the sky. So I'm mixing, and then it's just a matter of being brave. Like, put the sky in. Don't let the paint let it run like it's supposed to run, in the same direction. This perspective idea. You can actually go right over the dark marks so that your sky is consistent in the background. And what I'm doing is I'm going to, while it's wet, I'm going to put this dark area in, get a little bit more color, water, and I'm going to go into the sky. So the whole background, and it goes towards this third mark, right down here, right down to this point here, and leaving nothing open, no canvas showing. What you don't want to have is the dripping. So I'm going to get that darker blue in at the bottom, and still see my shapes, the shapes that I've created with the dark marks, and getting a little bit of white in here. So we're putting the white in here, and this is just the undercoat of the sky, just the undercoat. So you can see some beautiful textures happening right here. And that's as quick as it is. Don't touch it too much, just try and get the color in. It's a background right through the tonal drawing that was happening in the beginning of this video. And make sure it doesn't drip. You don't want drips coming in. And that's the sky. Easy as that. Very, very easy. Follow the steps from the beginning to the end. We're going to yellow, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. We're going to yellow this, get it to be yellow, not green. There's a hair. I hate hair in my paintings. Take it out, and that's it. The next thing I'm going to do is take a dirty blue, and I'm going to try to copy this sky. So reflection of the sky. I'm turning my brush over, and I'm going to get a dry brush feel along here. Okay, pick up some more white and build up my water body, which is reflecting the same as the sky. So I'm going to go across this way and get a reflection, lightening this whole area and bluing it, making it blue, because my sky is going to be reflecting off the bottom of the water body. I'm going to get it right in there, and some of the black is going to come through. It's going to show through. It's going to become brighter and brighter as it comes to the bottom of the painting. And I've always got this crisscross thing happening. Try and crisscross your painting and lightening the whole thing. So you can see the water is actually showing through now. So that's really cool. Put a bit of blue in here. And remember how dark this painting started. It started really dark, darkly, I don't know if that's a word, but you get the feeling that there's reflected light happening on the water. And let's just get some white in here, white in there, little dashes of white. Yeah, there's another hair. Get the hair out. I don't want hair in my painting. Let's get some blue and some white as a color, and create this space here. Now remember, what we're doing is we're going to be coming across the entire painting with the dark that is happening at the top here. But at the moment we've got a lot of white in this area, which would be good to do at the moment, this point in time. And there we go, we've got like a reflection, so these become vertical marks. And get some more white in there. Let's see how this works. And get some white in there. Okay, not too much because you want to crisscross it. So I'm dragging my brush backwards and forwards across the canvas, and there's some white in there building up. It's almost like a thin glaze that's happening. So we're getting a reflection of water. It's happening across here. So I'm putting it in, and then I drag it back across, so it's vertical and horizontal. And it gives the feel that the water is standing still. So there we go, we've got the sky in. The sky is not finished. Nothing's finished actually. We're maybe 2/3 through the painting. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try and dramatize the sky. But I have to, because I'm using an orange color here, I have to lighten the sky, especially the blue. Yellow and orange sky on top of the blue will go a bit more green, and I don't want green in the sky at all. So I'm lightening the sky, and that's just to get a skin of white over the top. I'm only having orange in this part of the sky. So there we go. Turn my brush over, give a bit of perspective, always going down to this third point here. Now I don't know if you have sky in your part of the world like this, but in South Africa we have these dramatic sunsets, especially in the winter time, when the sky is a bit dusty and it's got this orangey yellow kind of color. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting a very mixed orange yellow, and I've mixed it up on my palette, and I'm going to test it out very lightly, and it's almost on a wet white, so it's going to pick up like that. Not sure how it's going to work, because I've got to keep watching very carefully what happens to it. I'm adding white, getting almost a sunset down at this point in the painting, and getting the sky to become, here I'm adding white again. There's still a little yellow in my brush, and the whole part of the sky, all the way to the corner of this canvas, is going to be oranged up. Now what I'll do is I'm going to show you, I'm going to mix orange with the blue when my brush is finished, and I'm going to get a brown, which is a neutral color. Now just remember that there are still clouds, in this part, but the sky is being lit up by the sun which is now setting. Very, very dry, hardly any paint, and I'm just getting that glow that's happening in the sky. Okay, that's cool. It's like the sun is going down. The sun is in an area here. We can't see the sun, but I'm not a fan of seeing the sun as a ball, although we do see it as a ball. I prefer to disguise it. So I'm yellowing the sky here. Very, very dry. You might hear it scratching on the canvas, and it's very, very dry. The canvas is actually pulling the paint off, which is what I want. So we are outside in the garden studio, and it rained yesterday, so I had to pack everything away, and it just gave me something to talk about, because it does break one's stride when you are interrupted somehow. I've come back to the second day of painting, so the negative side is it breaks your stride. You're really going well, and then it rains or you have an interruption. But what it also does is something positive, and that is it gives you a chance to reflect on the painting. Once it's dry, you come back to it and you start seeing, okay, that's a water body which I didn't plan on, and there's a wonderful opportunity for a reflection of the trees, and also a reflection in this area of the orange sunset sky. So it's a little bit frustrating, because when you're painting, I like to paint almost in one session. At the moment I'm just dusting my painting off and seeing if there are any hairs randomly sitting in the painting. So let's go. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pick up the orange color and get some opposite reflection. So you've got the sky doing that, and that's to our third line, and the reflection is going to do almost the opposite. So you're getting it in some sort of fashion like this. I'm using a large brush, and I'm just dusting the reflection across here, and a little bit of orange in the color, and most of it's not going to, most of the reflection won't come all the way down, but it will be this distance that will be reflecting almost in a perspective fashion. Yeah, and very lightly, because remember the color of the water and the color of the sky is mixing at this point. So you've got this blue and the dark patches of almost nothing. It's also a reflection, a dark piece of reflection, but don't overdo this reflection part. You see what I mean? If we just take out a little, take it easy. I'm going to pick up some orange here. The orange and blue are going to make your grey that you know from your color wheel. Yellow and blue are going to make a green, which is not so bad in the water, but you don't want green in the sky. That's what you don't want. Just putting this paintbrush away, and I'm picking up a a flat paintbrush, and I've got some color in here, this blue, this orange should I say, and what I'm going to do is just get an edge over here on this water edge, which could be buildings in the distance, or it could be just a piece of edge of the water, so it gets a conclusion to that part of the painting. And there's a little orange in my brush, which I'm cool with. I'm okay with it. Just watch your painting as you're going. Watch all the time. Keep an eye on what you're seeing. And now this is getting nicely complicated over here. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and complete this part of the painting right now. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue. I'm going to mix it into my orange. And blue and orange will be opposite on the color wheel. And I'm going to get this to go a little bit like a neutral, distant, not mountain, it's just it's a land body, the end of everything here. There we go, that's that distance. Remember, bright colors come towards you, and dull colors like this neutral color that I'm painting now is for distance, for long, far away. And you can often see that in like a forest scene where the trees in the forest are actually far away from you, and they go like a pale neutral color, and the trees right in front of you, they will be brighter. You see the color. And now I'm just going to take this a little further and go right across here, because we had to stop last night or yesterday, so I didn't complete this part. So I'm just getting that in. Remember, the trees are going to be, these trees are going to be painted in a minute. They're not nearly finished, they're just for position. So let's get that blue and orange mixture again. Tiny bit of paint, it's not thick. And what I'm doing is just getting this distance. I'm going to add a bit of white. Remember, we're doing acrylic, so it's early morning, as you can hear the birds in the background, and so the paint's not going to dry that quickly, not drying that quickly. And what I'm picking up again, and I'm going to give an indication of a reflection that happens here. I'm going to put that reflection in. Don't really want to dirty the whole painting. I want to add color, but the color mustn't be intense, mustn't be bright, intense color. So what I want to do now is going to warm up this land area here, and then it will tell us what is going to happen here. Lastly, I'm doing the trees. So let's warm this up. Get an orange and a little bit of blue, which will make a brown neutral color. I'm not adding white to it. What I'm going to do is see what this does. Warms up this foreground, and I'm just going to let the paint do whatever it wants to do. I'm not going to try to paint anything particularly. I'm leaving some of the paint as a very watery kind of paint here. So warming it up, I'm using orange and blue. Okay, so that's going to be just fine. Bringing this forward, it's really the point. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to really darken this area in the front, and I'm mixing it with an alizarin crimson and blue, French ultramarine blue. and I'm going to just try to create these pieces of nothing that happen here. So I'd like to say it is like pieces of nothing, just really darkening this area and painting it in the direction of what I would imagine the landmass would look like here. Maybe there's some grasses in the front. I'm crisscrossing. I'm really just creating it as I go. I'm watching the painting and I'm making up my mind as I'm going along. And I really want this to be dark, nice and strong in the front here. And I'm using one of my favorite brushes, this glaze brush, which is really, really cool. I'm taking it right to the edge, and then we're going to highlight some of the areas while I'm doing this with this color. So it's this kind of color where you've got this, it's almost a burgundy warm color. And what I want to do is I'm going to just create a feeling of grassy edge, so that I can edge this piece of land. So I'm creating it like a grassy edge there, maybe just reinforcing the poles that would happen. There's some poles that I wanted in there that are sitting in the water. So yeah, so we just have to see, okay, this area is now complete. This area needs to have some white, and this area is starting to become complete. Look how green this is becoming because of the red, because of the warm color. It's becoming quite green. It's quite amazing actually. And painting it as if there was a dune or a bank of land up at the top here. So that's I'm almost getting to the point where it's done, but I want to lighten this area here. So the next part of this is going to be the reflections, and you can see how the trees are angled at this angle. So the opposite angle is important. So we're going to try and get that in. Very watered down dark paint, and I'm going to follow this tree and get a little bit of, when this dries it's going to look like a watercolor. We get that in, and then we're going to let that dry and then work with the white. Work the white in between. It's getting a little bit delicate now because I'm starting to like it, and that's what happens with a painting. You start to like it, and then you start becoming a little bit careful and cautious with your you know, your the bravery of what to do next. How do we paint the next thing? Remember, this is an exercise in how to start a painting, and this is what we've got to the end, the last touches, except for the trees. Those are going to be, so what I'm doing is I'm just getting a little bit of reflection in here, light. So I want to lighten this up, bring it forward, and so far it's going nicely. Yeah, I'm happy. If you can see those marks there, my hand's in the way, but I'm lightening it with pure white here, and getting the highlights in. So what I'm doing now is I've got a light blue. Our reflections have dried. I've got a light blue, and I'm going to get that distance, cutting these poles down, cutting them back a bit, and this is negative painting, the style painting in between the gaps. and getting this whole area lighter, this whole area here lighter. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing at the moment, and we're getting to the point where it's at, you know, we're finishing this part of the painting. Then I can get to the final one, which is going to be the tree section of the painting. Now in the distance, far distance, I'm going to just remember our third line there and there. I'm going to create some marks which may be buildings or a structure of some kind, and that's fine. So it's, the weight is in this corner here. Okay, and now for the final part is going to be the trees, which is going to, I'm going to be holding my brush at this step, part of the brush, the handle, and I'm just going to be doodling around here, making a fairly dark color, which will include green, but it's not going to, I don't want it to read as green. I want it to read as a dark green, so I'm going to be mixing green and red, opposite in the color wheel, and it'll make it really dark. So I want this to be like a shadowed area. Okay. So what I've done here is affected the trees quite a lot. So putting highlights in the trees, and also doing some detail work. And we're coming to the end of this painting. Some of these areas I don't want to darken. I want this to be soft. So some of these areas I don't want to darken, like these little trees that are happening here. That's quite nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run the brush up through these light areas, just to give it some consistency in terms of the structure of the tree itself. So run it right up, right through. And what I like to say is draw or paint it the way the tree grows. So you get a good sense of how you're painting it up from bottom to top. And just kind of rolling my brush as I go along, getting a little twists here and there or whatever, and try and think of it where you would be actually looking at a tree, so you get an idea. Run it up like that. So I'm not doing it this way, I'm doing it that way. I'm not doing it from top to bottom, which is a temptation, thinking that that would work. So we've got very much more detail coming into the front here, because the trees are actually very important as an element in this painting. So I'm going to give you a close-up shot of this, give you a close-up shot of the trees as a finish piece. And then we're going into the water and then the far distance. So I think we're pretty much there, finished for now. I'm going to do another video soon, and then darkening some of these reflection marks, and then seems like I can't stop, so happy with that. Thank you for watching my video. Subscribe, share it, copy the painting. I don't mind one bit. Don't worry about copyright. Send me a message, comment, and tell me what you think. Thanks for watching. Bye.